My name is Ranger Daniel Hayes. I dedicated 12 years of my life to the Blue Ridge Trails, a stretch of ancient mountains that whisper secrets to those who listen. I saw the sun rise over misty peaks, watched deer graze in untouched meadows, and guided countless hikers through its breathtaking beauty. What I'm about to tell you, I swore I'd carry that burden to my grave. A silent, solitary testament to the true horrors that lurk beyond the manicured paths. But after what happened last week, after the chilling silence that followed Jess's last transmission, I can no longer keep this secret. I need to warn you. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly, in the autumn of 2009. The air was crisp, the leaves a riot of fiery color, but an unsettling undercurrent began to ripple through the park. Hikers, usually so eager to share tales of their adventures, started reporting something wrong in the woods. Not a bear, not a wolf, nor any of the usual wildlife we logged. They spoke of a pervasive feeling of being watched, a cold, unseen presence that seemed to track their every move. More disturbingly, they reported hearing mimicked sounds, the distant cry of a child that vanished when approached, the rustle of leaves that didn't match the wind, or unsettlingly, fragments of their own conversations repeated back to them from the dense foliage. The first call that truly rattled me came from a man named Mark Peterson. His voice, usually gruff and steady, was reduced to a desperate, broken sob. He was camped with his wife, Sarah, near Miller's Creek, a secluded spot known for its trout fishing. He said Sarah had wandered off to gather firewood, just for a moment. Then, over the crackling line, he heard her voice screaming. A high-pitched, agonizing shriek that tore at the silence. But then, the horrifying detail. He heard another scream, identical, but distinctly separate, from both ends of the phone. He insisted he could hear his wife's voice through the earpiece. And then, impossibly, the same scream echoing from the woods right beside him. When we reached the site, his tent was overturned, their gear strewn about. We found Mark's body, contorted in a silent scream, his eyes wide and vacant, staring up at the empty canopy. Sarah was never recovered. The official report cited a bear attack, but there were no tracks, no blood trail, just that lingering, unshakable sense of something profoundly unnatural. That was just the beginning of what the locals quietly referred to as the mountain's hunger. I was a skeptic back then, a man of logic and procedure, grounded in the realities of the wilderness. I'd seen plenty of tragic accidents, animal attacks, and the occasional lost soul, but I couldn't rationalize the Peterson case. It gnawed at me. Still, I dismissed it as an anomaly, a traumatic hallucination on Mark's part. I didn't believe in the whispers, the mimics, the things that watched, until I saw it myself. It was October 17th, 2011. A cold, damp night, the kind where the fog hangs heavy and the air bites at your skin. Dispatch received a frantic 911 call from a teenager named Kevin Jenkins, camping with his father, Richard, near the old logging trails. The kid was barely coherent, his voice a frantic mixture of terror and disbelief. "Help! My dad's acting weird. He's not right." Then the line went silent. The last thing we heard before dispatch lost signal was Kevin screaming. "He's crawling on the ceiling." Before the line went dead with a sickening crackle. My partner, Miller, and I were the first responders. We drove our patrol vehicle as far as the washed-out road would allow, then hiked in, the crunching leaves under our boots the only sound in the oppressive silence. As we approached our campsite, an unnatural stillness descended. The air grew heavy, colder than the surrounding forest. The tent, a bright orange dome usually visible from a distance, was shredded, torn open as if by enormous, unseen claws. There was no blood, no struggle, just the baffling sight of fabric ripped from the inside out, high above where any animal could reach. And then, I heard it. A voice. His voice. Richard's voice. Over here, Danny. It's okay. Come on in, boy. It was an eerily perfect imitation. Casual, inviting, coming from the dense tree line just beyond the shattered tent. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew Richard. We'd shared coffee at the visitor center, talked about fishing spots. This wasn't right. Miller, a veteran ranger with 20 years under his belt, looked at me, his face pale in the beam of his flashlight. He knew. We both felt the prickle of unease, the instinctual warning screaming in our guts. We moved slowly, cautiously, our flashlight sweeping the surrounding woods. And then we found Richard Jenkins. He was inside the tent, partially buried under the ripped fabric, his body grotesquely contorted. But what truly froze the blood in my veins, what solidified the unspeakable horror of what we were dealing with, were his lips. They were sewn shut with fishing line, a crude, meticulous stitch that had been pulled tight. His face a silent, agonizing mask of terror. The voice from the tree line called out again, "Danny!" "Why aren't you coming?" "I'm waiting." We backed away, slowly, our rifles raised until we were clear of that cursed clearing. We later found Kevin Jenkins, huddled in the roots of an ancient oak, catatonic with fear, muttering about Daddy's new face and the thing that wore his voice. The official report called it a wilderness fatality, likely exposure, and a missing person. I knew the truth. After the Jenkins incident, I couldn't pretend anymore. The animal attacks were too precise, too personal. The missing persons left too little trace. I started asking around quietly, desperately, delving into the forgotten corners of the mountains, seeking answers where official channels offered only euphemisms and dead ends. It led me to the Cherokee elders, to the remote communities nestled deep within the valleys, their traditions woven into the very fabric of the Appalachians. They had always spoken of things the white man couldn't comprehend. Spirits of the land, ancient protectors, and darker entities. Old Manitowi was a shaman, his eyes as deep and ancient as the mountains themselves. He lived in a small, smoke-scented cabin, surrounded by herbs and animal totems. When I described what I'd seen, the mimicked voices, the impossible strength, the unsettling feeling of being hunted, he didn't blink. His expression remained calm, yet there was a deep sadness in his gaze. He simply nodded, stirring the embers of his fire. "You have seen an Iron, he said, his voice a low rumble. "The ones who walk in borrowed skin. They are not animals, not spirits in the way you understand. They are a corruption, a shadow of humanity, driven by a terrible hunger. They wear skins like coats, and they take on the voices of the living to lure their prey." He explained that these creatures weren't merely predators. They were tricksters, deceivers, preying on trust and fear. They thrive in places where the veil between worlds is thin, where ancient magic still lingers. He told me, with grave seriousness, that you don't hunt it. It hunts you. The moment you acknowledge its presence, the moment it knows you see it, you become its focus. He spoke of warnings passed down through generations, when it calls your name, when it offers a comfort you desperately crave. That is when you are in the gravest danger. Do not respond. Do not engage. And most importantly, never look back. He then gave me a small, tightly bound leather pouch. Inside, I felt the gritty texture of fine ash mixed with a unique, earthy red clay. "When it calls your name," he instructed, his voice barely a whisper, "throw this at the sound. It will break the illusion for a moment. It will give you a chance to flee, but you must run without hesitation, and never turn to see what you leave behind." He warned me that if I ever felt its presence near my home, or if it found me outside the sacred grounds, the pouch would be my only defense. I carried that pouch like a sacred relic. It became a constant heavy presence in my pocket, a grim reminder of the unspeakable reality I now inhabited. The encounters continued, sporadic but escalating. Last winter, a seasoned trapper, Jedediah Blackwood, vanished from his remote cabin. We found his rifle propped against a tree, his thermos still steaming from the morning coffee. But then, we found his skin, nailed to a birch tree in a secluded clearing, just beyond his trapping lines. It was meticulously splayed out, inside out, like a gruesome trophy. And it was still warm. The stench was indescribable, a mix of animalistic musk and something profoundly, chillingly human. The blood had barely dried. I remembered Adohi's words. They wear skins like coats. I felt the weight of the pouch in my pocket, cold and solid, and knew then that the old man's stories weren't just folklore. They were warnings. For years, I followed Atohi's advice. I carried the pouch, avoided direct confrontation, and tried to warn my fellow rangers in veiled terms they largely dismissed as my Appalachian eccentricities. I became more solitary on patrols, avoiding deep, isolated valleys after dusk. The calls from the public lessened, or perhaps fewer people returned to report them. A grim calm settled over the park, a false peace, but the creature, it hadn't gone away. It was simply biding its time, growing bolder perhaps, or perhaps it had finally learned how to truly hunt me. 2 weeks ago, the insidious calm shattered. My partner, Jess Carmichael, a bright, ambitious young ranger, was on patrol near the old logging road, about 10 miles west of my usual sector. A disturbance call came in, a report of strange lights and animalistic cries near a derelict hunter's cabin. Standard procedure, she signed off, promising to call in with an update. Then, her last radio message came through, distorted by static but chillingly clear. Her voice, usually so confident, was laced with confusion. Then growing terror. Daniel. Why are you already here? My blood ran cold. I was 10 miles away, sitting in my truck, filling out paperwork. I slammed the radio, yelling for her to repeat, but only static answered. A frantic dread seized me. I called dispatch, demanding to know if anyone else had been sent. No one had. I knew exactly what she had seen. I knew what voice she had heard. We found her patrol car a few hours later. The engine was still running, the headlights cutting through the growing twilight, illuminating a patch of empty forest. The driver's side door was ajar, a small pool of oil glistening on the dirt beneath. No sign of a struggle, no blood. Just an overwhelming, sickening silence. I immediately went for the dash cam. The footage was grainy, the light fading, but what it showed, it will haunt my nightmares until the day I die. The camera showed Jess sitting in the driver's seat, seemingly calm, looking out into the woods. Then, a figure emerged from the tree line. It was wearing my face. Not a mask, not a distorted reflection, but my face, my beard, my eyes, my ranger hat. It even had my slight limp, the one I'd picked up after a fall years ago. It walked slowly towards the car, a chillingly perfect imitation of my gait. Jess's expression shifted from confusion to relief, then to a dawning, soul-crushing horror as it reached her window. It knocked, gently at first, then harder, its movements a grotesque parody of my own. The audio, muffled screaming, then a wet, sickening crunch that reverberated through the quiet cab, then silence. Psst. The figure lingered for a moment, its eyes, my eyes, staring directly into the camera, a predatory intelligence glinting within them. Then it simply turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving behind only the sound of the idling engine and the rhythmic drip, drip, drip of something I couldn't bear to identify. The camera continued to record the empty, silent interior of the car for another agonizing minute before the footage cut out. I quit the next day. I couldn't. I just couldn't. The mountains, once my sanctuary, had become a prison of terror. I packed my meager belongings, sold my cabin, and drove east, as far as I could get from the Blue Ridge. I thought I was safe. I thought the distance would protect me, that the creature couldn't follow. I was wrong. Last night, I woke up to something scratching at my door. Not a rodent, not an animal. Something deliberate, rhythmic, almost patient. And then I heard it. My own voice, perfectly replicated, whispered from the other side of the wood, a chillingly familiar request. "Danny, let me in." I'm recording this now, using the last of my old Ranger equipment, tucked away in the deepest corner of what I foolishly hoped was a safe house. The power is out. My phone is dead. Every window is boarded shut, every door barricaded. But the sound, the knocking, it won't stop. It's not violent, not frantic. It's methodical, almost inviting, a slow, deliberate rhythm that grinds at my sanity. And worse, it's not just the knocking. I hear the whispers now, too, a chorus of voices I've known and loved, all calling my name, all asking to be let in. My mother's gentle plea, Jess's panicked cry, even Richard Jenkins' calm, eerie invitation from that cursed campsite. They're all out there. They're all him. The ashes Atoe gave me. The small leather pouch that was my only hope. They're gone. I must have lost them during the move. Or perhaps it took them. A final, cruel twist of the knife. I can feel the cold radiating from the door, seeping through the wood, chilling me to the bone. This isn't just a pursuit. It's a slow, agonizing siege. It wants me to break. It wants me to open the door, just to see if it's real, just to confirm what I already know. And then it will take me. I don't know how much time I have left. The air in here is growing stale, and the whispers are getting clearer, more insistent. If you're listening to this, if somehow this recording makes it out, stay out of Appalachia after dark. Do not go seeking answers, do not seek the thrill of the unknown. And if you're ever out there, in the silence of the deep woods, and you hear something perfectly imitating someone you love, someone you trust, calling your name from the shadows, run. And never, ever look back.